Have you ever wondered if a tiny dream could carry the power to move mountains? Sometimes the smallest hearts hold the greatest ambition. Once upon a time, in a meadow painted with dandelions that danced in the breeze and butterflies that fluttered like drifting confetti, there lived a tiny sparrow named Pip. Now, Pip was not the strongest bird in the meadow. His wings were smaller than the robins, his song was quieter than the larks, and his courage, well, at least that's what the other birds thought, seemed much smaller than his size. But inside Pip lived something bigger than feathers, bigger than bones, bigger even than the meadow itself. A dream. Every morning, Pip would wake up early and gaze at the horizon. There, far away, rose the great mountain. Its snow-capped peaks sparkled in the sunrise, and clouds curled around it like scarves. To the other birds, it was just a mountain. But to Pip, it was more than rocks and snow. It was a symbol. It was a promise. Someday, Pip whispered to himself each morning, I'll fly all the way there, to the very top. The meadow birds would chuckle at him. Pip, you can barely fly past the oak tree, laughed the sparrows. You'll freeze before you reach halfway, cawed the crows. Why waste your energy chasing silly ideas, hooted the owl. But Pip didn't argue. He just kept looking at the mountain, the way a child looks at a jar of cookies, certain that somehow, some way, it must be possible. One golden morning, Pip puffed up his feathers and made his grand announcement. Today, I begin my journey to the great mountain. The meadow burst into laughter. Robins rolled off branches. Pigeons flapped their wings in amusement. Even the butterflies giggled as they circled the air. But Pip wasn't waiting for applause. He stretched his wings, quivering with nervous excitement, and leapt into the sky. At first, the world seemed kind. The air was gentle, carrying him past the fields where sunflowers turned their heads to watch. The breeze whispered, "You can do this," and Pip's little heart swelled with pride. But soon the wind shifted. It grew harsher, colder, almost angry. It shoved him backward, tugged at his feathers, and laughed in cruel gusts. Pip flapped harder. His tiny wings ached. His chest burned. Looking down, the meadow below looked safe, inviting. Go back before you fall," a voice in his head whispered. And yet, above him, the great mountain glowed. Pip took a shaky breath and whispered, "Just one more flap." And then another, and another. On his way, Pip met a turtle crawling slowly through the grass. "Little bird, why rush to the mountain?" the turtle asked kindly. "I enjoy my journey one step at a time. If you move too fast, you miss the beauty." Pip tilted his head, admiring the turtle's wisdom. "That's true," Pip said, "but my heart beats for that peak. I have to try." Later, as he fought against the wind, Pip saw a butterfly drifting effortlessly. "Why work so hard, Pip?" the butterfly teased. "See how easy it is to let the wind carry you? No effort, no struggle, just float." Pip watched her twirl and dance, wishing for a moment he could do the same. But then he remembered. Butterflies never reached the mountaintop. They stayed in gardens, while his dream lived in the clouds. "Your way is beautiful," Pip said, "but my way is mine." Day melted into night. Hungry and trembling, Pip perched on a thin branch. The stars twinkled above, glittering like unreachable promises. Doubt gnawed at him. Maybe they were right. Maybe I'm too small. Maybe dreams like this are not for sparrows like me. And then a tiny glow. A firefly landed beside him, carrying its lantern of light. "Are you not afraid of the dark?" Pip asked softly. The firefly smiled. "The dark is exactly why I shine." Those words struck Pip like lightning. If the darkness gave the firefly a reason to glow, then maybe struggle gave him a reason to soar. Renewed, he spread his wings. "I'll shine in my way," he whispered. The journey grew colder. Clouds wrapped around him like heavy blankets, chilling his wings, filling his lungs with icy air. His body screamed to stop. His mind begged him to quit. But then he remembered the firefly's glow, and flap by flap, breath by breath, he carried on. As he climbed higher, time played tricks on him. Days blurred, nights passed. The meadow became a distant memory. Loneliness clawed at his chest, and hunger gnawed at his belly. But every time he thought he would fall, he reminded himself, one more flap. And finally, one dawn, Pip pierced through the last layer of cloud, and there it was, the peak of the great mountain. Snow sparkled under the sunlight. The sky stretched endlessly above him, painted in pink and gold. For the first time in his life, Pip wasn't looking up. He was looking down from the top. He landed trembling, tears filling his tiny eyes. Below him lay the world, meadows, rivers, forests, all looking impossibly small. His heart raced with joy, not because he had proved the others wrong, but because he had proved himself right. The birds in the meadow looked up and gasped. The same little sparrow they once mocked now stood silhouetted against the rising sun, perched proudly on the peak. And for the first time, they didn't laugh. They watched in silence, in awe. And Pip, he stood in the thin, frosty air and whispered to himself, "I was never too small. I was always enough." The lesson is simple. Dreams may look too big, but ambition makes the impossible possible. Even the smallest wings can carry you to the greatest heights. Believe, persist, and one day you'll surprise even yourself. If this story lit a spark in your heart, subscribe to Life Lessons Library for more inspiring journeys that remind you your story is still being written.